All right, we're back for another live stream of the Nakshatra Tales of the Nakshatra Gods. Last week we talked about Pushya and Brihaspati and how Indra. We started this long story about how Indra is going to be punished by his guide, Brihaspati. So if you remember that. Anyway, this week we're going to talk about the Chitra Nakshatra and Tvasta, because that's the next person that comes into the story. Tvasta. What we're doing now is we're reading from the second half of my new book, Nakshatra, the Authentic Heart of Vedic Astrology, which you can get like right now. Like really right now, you could totally get this on Amazon.com. So if you remember the backstory, Indra is sitting in his court with his friends, enjoying his life as the king of paradise. Brihaspati, his guide, comes in. Indra doesn't even notice. Brihaspati gets a little bit surprised by this, like Indra is on what wavelength is Indra on? I better teach him how to be proper. So he walks out. And Indra's friends say, "Yo, Indra, you just didn't even greet your guru when he walked in the door." And then he walked out. So Indra's like, "Whoa," and he gets up and he goes to look for Brihaspati, but Brihaspati made himself invisible. So now I think that's where we can catch up with the current story. Right, so because he didn't have Brihaspati or Pushya Nakshatra advising him on what to do and helping him do it, Indra's power started to wane. So that's what happens in a chart when Pushya is not good. The person doesn't get good advice. The person doesn't know what to do, doesn't have anybody to help them do what they're supposed to do, and their prosperity wanes. So here's what happened. Let's continue reading now. Let me just grab a little tea. So this section is called Indra's Magic Weapons. Hearing of Brihaspati's absence, so the news travels fast. Hearing of Brihaspati's absence and knowing this would make Indra weak, the Asuras launched a successful attack on the gods and achieved their revenge, right? Banishing the gods from paradise. So there's a couple interesting things that they do have, like a CNN, cable news network, in the cosmos. It's probably faster and better than ours. So the Asuras found out that Indra's weak. So they said, bam, this is our opportunity, let's attack. So remember, why do they want to attack Indra? It's because if you remember way back when we started this series, or in the initial section of this book, Indra banished them from paradise after that whole political coup where he overthrew Verona. He got rid of all of the Asuras, not just Verona. And that was quite unfair, and these guys want to get it back. So finally they did it. They were actually able to do it. When Brihaspati or Pushya left Indra, even the strongest person becomes weak without good guidance. The Asuras, they came into paradise, they stormed it, they took it over, and they banished the gods. They kicked butt on the gods and sent them scattering and hiding. The gods had to go into hiding. So the next paragraph says, the scattered and defeated gods rushed to Brahma. There's three people that are superior to the gods: Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. And you'll find that the gods and even sometimes the Asuras, when they get into really bad trouble, they go to one of these three to get help. So this time the gods went to Brahma. And Brahma said to Indra, who was actually like broken, like his bones were broken and everything, he said, the whole problem is that you don't have a competent priest. The whole problem is that you insulted Brihaspati and now your Pushya left you. So the whole problem is you don't have a competent priest, so you cannot perform the rituals that empower you. And we talked about that last week, about rituals, priests, what it really means. So Brahma said, the solution is really simple. You need a priest. You need a guide. The old one you can't find. He's pretty insulted with you, Brihaspati. So get a new one. That's what Brahma said. Then Indra says, but where am I going to find a priest as competent as Brihaspati? So then Brahma told him something special. He said, amongst the Asura, Maya, a person named Maya, is exactly the priest you need. Then Indra says, but why would an Asura become my priest? I am his enemy. And Brahma said, I am Maya's grandfather. So ask him in my name and he will comply. Tell him I sent you and he'll do it because I'm his grandpa. So then Indra, now he doesn't have to go to Nagalok. He has to go to Swargalok because the gods took over paradise. The Devas, the Asuras, took over paradise. So Indra has to sneak into paradise. He has to sneak into Swarga, disguised, and try to find Maya. So he does that. He sneaks into paradise and finds Maya. Maya's son, actually. He didn't find Maya straight out. He found Maya's son, Vishvarupa. Vishvarupa, he saw him perform. He was performing rituals. And this boy, Vishvarupa, had 3 heads. Because there's 3 types of rituals. There's 3 Vedas. The 4th Veda is just for correcting the 3. So there's 3 types of rituals. So this son of Maya had 3 heads, 1 for each type of ritual, which usually a priest who does one type of ritual becomes disqualified from the side effects of that ritual from doing a ritual of another type. But because this priest had 3 different heads, the mouths which used the mantras from each different type of ritual didn't get contaminated. So he could perform any type of ritual. So this disguised Indra goes up and he says, listen, I'm in disguise right now. I'm actually Indra, and I need you to become my priest. So Vishvarupa says, no way. You're the enemy of my people. Why should I perform rituals for you? And Indra says, Brahma sent me here and assured me that you would do it. So in deference to Brahma, Vishvarupa reluctantly acquiesced to Indra's request. Okay, I guess I have to do it. Grandpa said so. So Indra and Vishvarupa absconds. They go away, and Vishvarupa starts to perform rituals and starts to advise Indra on what rituals to perform and starts to perform them correctly. So Indra starts regaining his strength. And by regaining his strength, he amasses his army again. He reassembles all the gods. They go and they attack the Asuras who have claimed paradise, and they kick him out again. So Indra reclaims paradise with the help of Vishvarupa. Now, Brihaspati is still nowhere to be found. So now Vishvarupa is acting as the god of Pusha. Vishvarupa is acting as Indra's priest. But Indra is keeping careful tabs on him because this the nature of Jeshta is that it's always suspicious. Indra's nakshatra is Jeshta. Jeshta is always suspicious because Indra is always suspicious. So he's very suspicious of Vishvarupa. This guy's an Asura. He's from my enemy's family. So I better keep my eyes on him. And by carefully looking at Vishvarupa, he noticed that the boy was setting aside some portion of the ritual to benefit his own kin, the Asura. Now that enraged Indra, and he egomaniacally declared the boy a traitor and cut off all 3 of the heads. News of this soon reached the boy's father, Maya, whose rage knew no boundaries. So Maya starts to scream. He says, nobly honoring our mutual grandfather. See, Brahma's the mutual grandfather of the Devas and the Asuras. So Maya says, my son was noble. He honored our mutual grandfather, Brahma. My son became the priest of his enemy and empowered him to defeat his own people. Yet this maniac calls him a traitor and executes him? This boy sacrificed everything to serve Indra because Brahma requested it. And then Indra is so ungrateful, so there's another trait that you have to watch out for with Chitra Nakshatra. It's suspicious and therefore not very grateful about things. So it doesn't become satisfied with what it already has because it's not grateful. It's always wanting more. So Indra's very ungrateful to what Vritra does, and when he sees that Vishvarupa. So when he sees that Vishvarupa is giving even a portion of his efforts to his own family, he declares that Vishvarupa is a traitor and cuts off his heads and kills him. So then Maya, Vishvarupa's father, says, I will not merely banish that fool, which is what happened. The Asuras banished Indra. So Maya says, I will not merely banish that fool or let him flee. I will do away with him once and for all. It's going to kill him. Maya says, I'm going to kill Indra. Now Maya is the father of Vishvarupa. He's a competent priest like Brihaspati. So Indra is in a lot of trouble. What Maya does, Maya performs a ritual. You see how important rituals are. Anything these people want to do, they do it with some kind of mystical technology called, that we are calling now, rituals. So Maya performs some ritual to call forth a reincarnation of the original dragon Vritra. So Maya's thinking, this guy Indra got into power because he killed Vritra. I'm going to call Vritra back to life. And I'm going to kill Indra with Vritra to get perfect revenge. So that's what he did. He reanimated Vritra. Vritra comes to life, and Maya says, you already know who your enemy is. It's Indra. Go get him. So Vritra then just goes into paradise and just starts wrecking things. Just completely decimating the gods. And once again, the gods get driven out of paradise. Oh, now this is the part where Indra is definitely, his bones are broken. With broken bones, now Indra flees again. This time he doesn't go to Brahma, he goes to Vishnu. And then Vishnu gives him some advice. So you're following the story now? Once again, the Devas are out of paradise and they're just trying to survive in the woods, in the wilderness. Indra runs over to Vishnu. Vishnu says, listen, you're going to need a special weapon to defeat Vritra. The ordinary thunderbolt will not do. You will need a sharper, harder one made from the bones of sage Dadichi, whose bones are 1,000,000 times harder than diamond, thanks to a boon from Shiva. So it's either Brahma, Vishnu, or Shiva who solves everybody's problems. So Shiva had given Dadichi a special boon that his bones were harder than diamonds. And Vishnu says, so you need this super hard material, the hardest material in the universe. Make a sword out of it, or a spear or something, and make that your lightning bolt. Use that as your lightning bolt. Only with that weapon would you be able to cut the reanimated Vritra who is empowered by Maya. Now, you may have heard of the name Dadichi before in our stories. So Indra winces at the name of Dadichi because Dadichi was the sage that Indra had decapitated. If you remember when we talked about the Ashwini Nakshatra and how the Ashwinis wanted to get Soma, the Amrita, the divine elixir of the gods, Dadichi taught them how to make it, how to synthesize Soma. Right? So Dadichi essentially teaches the science of fermentation and how to create different kinds of alcohols. And Indra said, if you teach anybody this, I'll cut off your head. So he came running and cut off Dadichi's head. Then the Ashwini had previously actually replaced the head with a horse's head. Remember that whole story? So anyway, now Vishnu tells Indra, you need that guy. You need Dadichi. You need his bones. So Indra is like, that's not going to be easy. This guy doesn't like me. I'm the guy who cut off his head. So see, the problem of Jeshta, Indra's nakshatra, is you're making enemies, but then you're going to need those enemies. So be careful with Jeshta nakshatra. Try not to fall into that rut of making people enemies unnecessarily. Look at what Indra did. Indra didn't need to declare Vishvarupa a traitor. Vishvarupa wasn't a traitor. He was giving a small portion of his income, let's say, to his family, and most of the portion to Indra. What's that? That's not traitor. You don't need to make enemies so badly. And then, but the result of making those enemies, later on you're going to need those people. So that's what the situation Indra is in now. First of all, he needs help from the Asuras, who he made his enemy. Now he needs help from Dadichi, who he made his enemy earlier. So Vishnu gives a similar assurance as Brahma had before. He says, ask the sage for this in my name. When he, Dadichi, hears my name, he will comply happily. So Indra rushed to earth and asked Dadichi to sacrifice his life by donating his bones. And hearing that Vishnu had made this request, Dadichi indeed happily complied, in spite of his previously less than favorable run-in with Indra. Okay, so far, actually, I have this session, I've titled it about Chitra. But so far, mostly we've been learning about Jeshta, because we're seeing Indra's folly. And we're learning a bit about Pusha, just because this is all about the lack of Pusha, because Indra has insulted Brihaspati. But now we're going to hear about the subject of, the intended subject of today's discussion, which is Chitra Nakshatra. So Vishnu previously had said to Indra, once you have the Dadichi's bones, bring them to Vishvakarma. He will know what to do. Okay. Now, who's Vishvakarma? And this is actually kind of complicated, but I'll make it easy. Vishvakarma is a manifestation of a god named Tvasta, the god of creative intellect. So Tvasta is the usual name for the god of Chitra. Vishvakarma is like a synonym. Vishvakarma is Tvasta. So Vishvakarma is the god of Chitra. Tvasta is the god of Chitra. And also the interesting thing is, I don't know if I say it here, but I'll just tell you. The interesting thing is that Tvasta is the aspect of Brahma. Brahma is the creative force. There's three forces. There's an undoing force, there's a doing force, and there's a sustaining force. Those are the three fundamental forces. So Brahma is the doing force, Shiva is the undoing force, and Vishnu is the sustaining force. And those are the three gunas, Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. Rajas is Brahma, the doing force, Tamas is Shiva, the undoing force, and then Sattva is Vishnu, the sustaining force. So the doing force, Brahma, is the creative force. And that Shakti, the power to do creation, is called Tvasta. Right? So Tvasta is an aspect or a facet of Brahma. So Chitra Nakshatra is one of the Brahma nakshatras. It's you have Abhijit, Chitra, and Rohini, different aspects of Brahma. Okay, so this aspect of Brahma is really the intelligent one. The Rohini is the creative, passionate one, and this one in Chitra is the intelligent, detailed engineer. And that specifically, Brahma's intelligent, detailed engineering intellect takes a personality as Tvasta, who is also known as Vishvakarma. So Vishnu told Indra, once you get the bones from Dadichi, go see Vishvakarma, show him the bones, tell him you need a weapon. He'll know how to make it. Okay, so Vishvakarma, I'm reading from the book. What book? Let me just remind you what book I'm reading from here. This book, Nakshatra, The Authentic Heart of Vedic Astrology, which you can get on Amazon.com. And it's the second half of the book. The first half of the book is a translation of the sutras from Taittiriya Brahmana about the nakshatras. So Vishvakarma is a manifestation of the god named Tvasta, the god of creative intellect. So that's the nature of Chitra Nakshatra. It's creative intellect. And the power behind all beautiful, amazing, and mesmerizing creations. Chitra, the word Chitra means beautiful, amazing, mesmerizing. As Vishvakarma, Chitra designs and builds the incredibly sophisticated artwork and technology of paradise. Now, this is also interesting because who's this guy Maya? We're going to find out about that too and how this is related. When presented with Dadichi's bones, Vishvakarma turned them into a cadre of incredibly powerful weapons, bunch of weapons, and he gave different ones to different people. In particular, he used the spinal column of Dadichi to create a thunderbolt for Indra that was sharper than razors and harder than diamonds, with which Indra could finally defeat the newly risen Vritra and bring paradise back under the god's dominion. Now, so that's interesting, fascinating stuff. You get these bones from a sage who's been blessed by Shiva, and then the spinal cord is made into this thunderbolt diamond razor blade weapon. And other bones were made into other weapons that were given to other people. I don't have the details here. Now, let me tell you a little bit more interesting stuff about Chitra and Tvasta and how it's related to the other parts of the story. Tvasta has two manifestations. Tvasta's other manifestation is Vishvakarma's parallel Maya. Remember Maya? Maya's Vishwarupa's dad. The guy who sent Vritra to kill Indra. So I should probably have diagrams if I had like all day long to illustrate this stuff, because there's so many characters involved in these stories. Tvasta's other manifestation is Vishvakarma's parallel Maya. So Tvasta, the god of creativity, has two manifestations. One is Vishvakarma and one is Maya. Vishvakarma, what Vishvakarma does for the gods, Maya does for the Asura. So because, and you remember this from the beginning story, the primary story of the Nakshatras is how the gods and the Asuras were separated by Indra. And not all of the gods and Asuras agreed to this or thought it was good. And in particular, Tvasta didn't think it was the smartest thing ever to separate the Asuras and Asuras. So what he did was he went with each group. So he manifested himself as Vishvakarma to be with the gods and as Maya to be with the Asuras. And he serves them both in the same way as their engineer and technologist, etc. Okay, so this tells you something super important about Chitra. Chitra is the word Chitra means multifaceted. So it's not partisan. It doesn't just take the side of a party. Chitra is very bipartisan or multi-partisan. It's very equal and fair, and doesn't take a king as a king just because the guy's a crown. It sees the actual quality in people and responds to them accordingly. It's very fair and open. It doesn't take a person as a guru just because everybody says this guy's a guru. And it doesn't ignore a person just because everybody says he's a fool. It listens to all the things, to all the opinions, because it has intelligence enough to sort it out. It's to determine the value of these people and things and ideas on its own. So Chitra Nakshatra is a very fair and open nakshatra. It's multifaceted and impartial. And because what it's multifaceted means Chitra is seeing many angles of something at the same time. Oh, I can see what you're saying, and I see what he's saying, and I see what she's saying, and I see what I'm saying, and I can see how they all coexist. It's a Chitra kind of worldview. So Chitra is impartial, it can see many aspects and angles at the same time. It's intellectual, creative. So Tvasta is like this, right? Tvasta is impartial. Tvasta is an intellectual. You find that intellectuals are not highly partisan. He's a designer. He'll lend his talents and benefits to anybody who asks and deserves. So, to fathom the depths of Tvasta's impartiality, consider this. As Maya, Indra ruthlessly killed his child. Then, as Vishwakarma, he built the weapon that protected Indra from the full fury of Maya's vengeance. Did you get that? This will really show you how broad-minded and equipoised Tvasta is. Tvasta has two manifestations, Maya and Vishwarupa. Maya's child... No, sorry. There's too many names here even for me. Tvasta has two manifestations, Maya for the Asuras and Vishwakarma for the gods. Maya's son is Vishwarupa, the guy with three heads. Indra killed Vishwarupa unfairly, highly unfairly, after Vishwarupa had helped him at great expense. So then Maya wants to get revenge on Indra. Indra goes to Vishwakarma to get protected from that. Vishwakarma is Maya. So Vishwakarma is they're both Tvastas. So Tvasta is the one who wants to kill Indra, and Tvasta is also the one who protects Indra. So you can see how Chitra Nakshatra can see things from everybody's point of view. It's multifaceted. It's very delicate and balanced and sees a lot of different aspects on one thing. Okay? Let me see. I think maybe we'll stop there. Let me see what this next section is, how long it is. Let me just read this next section to close up this bit. This section is called Dependence of the King. So Indra means king. That's what it means. It means king, or super important, or powerful. And the god bearing this name represents our sovereignty. So this is the good side of Jyeshta Nakshatra. Indra's Nakshatra, the constellation of Jyeshta, it represents sovereignty, which means the ability to have power and defeat enemies. Right? Indra's ultimate enemy is Vritra. The name Vritra signifies that he is an eclipse of sovereignty. Vritra means to cover. So Vritra is trying to cover Indra, and Indra is trying to escape from Vritra. The earlier, more ritualistic portions of the Vedas, like Rig, depict Indra as being unable to defeat Vritra without the help of three key figures, and those three figures are Verona, Agni, and Soma. Remember that in the original tale, the first time around. These three represent the most important aspects of Vedic sacrifice. Verona represents the gods, Agni represents the fire, and Soma represents the offering. Indra's dependence on Verona, Agni, and Soma therefore illustrates our own dependence on the blessings obtained by adherence to the ceremonial and sacrificial culture prescribed in the Vedas. So that's what it's trying to say. That's what it's trying to depict in this tale. That in the first, remember Vritra was incarnated twice. In the first case, Indra couldn't defeat him until he got Verona, Agni, and Soma on his side. And Verona is the person who receives the offerings, Agni is the transmission of the offerings, and Soma is the offering. So in other words, without the blessing, without your effort to obtain the blessings of the gods, you can't defeat your eclipses. You can't defeat the things that are eclipsing you. Then that's the first incarnation of the Vritra. Later, in the actual development of the Vedas, there's later portions of the Vedas are more philosophical, less ritualistic. So those are the Puranas and Upanishads. So, like Srimad Bhagavatam is supposed to be the final evolution of the Veda. Srimad Bhagavatam has an elaborate tale of Indra fighting Vritra. And it depicts Indra as being unable to defeat Vritra without the help of the bones of sage Dadichi. And also, you may say by extension, also the help of Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu. As an analogy, this illustrates that our prosperity is dependent upon what we can only obtain from the wise, which is wisdom. Right? So the philosophical portion of the Veda is trying to say that if you don't have wisdom, you won't be able to overcome the Vritras, the demon that's trying to squeeze you and cover you. So if you think about Pushya Nakshatra again for one moment, you remember that Pushya Nakshatra is trying to give you wisdom so that you can do the right thing properly. So the two portions of the Vedas are saying the same thing. Indra needs to be able to do the thing properly. That's the ritual, to be able to do things well, accurately, exactly. So he needs Verona, Agni, Soma. He needs the components of the sacrifice. But more than just the technique and technology of your action, you also need the wisdom of what to do and when to do it and why to do it. And that's illustrated in the second incarnation of Chitra, which is where he needed the bones of a sage. He needed the core, the central being of a sage, which is wisdom. Okay, we'll end there for today, and then next week we'll start with some amazing tales about Indra. So again, we're going to hear a lot more about Jyeshta, Indra's appetite for passion, Indra's appetite for sensual enjoyment, and we're going to hear how he wound up with vaginas all over, with his body transformed into a vessel of thousands of vaginas, or vulvas, shall we say. What the heck? Let me see if you guys have it. I'll take 3 questions that are related to the story that I like. So let me see. Oh, there's no... Oh, wait, here's chats. Chats are down here. I won't scroll. How can I get this thing to scroll? Okay. It's trying to load your comments now. I'm going to see if there's any cool comments. Thanks, Yu. Any questions? Spiral Cosmos art. Were all these mythological legends or ancient history before or after the Kurukshetra battle? Far, 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 far before the Kurukshetra battle. This is an entirely different cosmological epic. The Mahabharata, in fact, the Mahabharata battle, that basic war, would take place thousands and millions of times, over and over and over again in a cycle, and within these type of cosmic things that we're talking about happening once. Mahabharata war was only 5,000 years ago, roughly. So yeah, that was a good question. All You Need Is Love wants to know if I could talk in more detail about what happened to Verona after Indra took over. I'm so curious. So he goes to Satyabhishek, and he becomes kind of this. He's just holding together the fabric of the universe. So he's like the gravitational force pulling things together. So, but mythologically speaking, what he does is he goes down and lives in the bottom of the universe, which is drenched, it was just like covered in water, with Varuni, who is Apas, Purva Palguni, not Purva Ashada. So he goes down there with Apas, and they're married. And basically he's retired, so he gets a little bit fat and a little bit old. So he's depicted as being a little bit older than the rest of the gods and a bit chubbier because he doesn't really have that much work, and he's from a previous generation, let's say. So kind of he drinks a lot of Veroni, which is like an intoxicant of a heavenly sort, and basically relaxes and enjoys life. All right, one more. Why didn't the Asura Guru foresee his death if he's so wise? I mean, he's dealing with Indra. So what do you think? Why do you think everything is foreseeable? You worried about an astrologer saying, you're upset that sometimes people will be upset that an astrologer didn't predict for them some event. But even Maya didn't predict that his son would die. Because the calculation of the future is so complicated that nobody can do it except Vishnu. to do it in complete accuracy. And even Vishnu doesn't do it because the part of the factor of what's involved in the universe is will. It's the most important part of the factor that's involved in the universe, and Vishnu doesn't want to be able to calculate what's going to happen next because that's boring as shit. To be able to know everything that's going to happen, there's going to be no surprises. So the reason why conscious beings exist in multifarious forms like me, you, and everybody else is so that Vishnu can be surprised. So the surprise is actually something desirable. And maybe Maya knew that this would happen, but also knew that this needs to happen. That's sometimes the case. Maybe Maya knew that his son would wind up dead, but knew that that has to happen and knows that he has to try to kill Indra. And in some epics, he might actually succeed. Epics, like these tales, the history repeats itself in cycles. So sometimes things are slightly different. Okay. So there's kind of like two answers to your question of why did Maya let his son go to Indra? Didn't he know? Couldn't he foresee the future that he would get killed? One answer is you can't foresee the future with perfect accuracy. Second answer is sometimes you can foresee the future, but it's unavoidable. So you should just walk into it with your head up. And that's probably what the case was, because Brahma had ordered them to do it. And Brahma is not a bad guy. So there must be some good reason why what's going on here. That must be their conviction. Brahma told us to do this. Brahma is not a jerk. Brahma is not a bad guy. So Brahma can foresee the future even better than us. So something good will come of this. Okay? All right, guys. I'll see you next week, okay? For continuing this tale. Farewell, my friends.